This is the Mevlana Museum, a historical, beautiful and pleasant, yet very simple building. At the heart of this complex lies the ultimate secret, the secret of the beginning and the end of life. Although this secret is hidden, it is also quite obvious, much like life itself. The museum is like a tree that has grown from a small idea, flourishing with all its splendor, yet concealing the secret of how it came to be. Its beauty shines at the edge of the field of life, but the mystery of its existence grows within its fruit. Those who seek the meaning of life might better understand the nature and purpose of existence by contemplating the mysterious seed from which it all began. Where is the secret of the Mevlana Museum? The designers of this remarkable building have skillfully hidden its secret in the 6 doors of the museum. Perhaps today is the day it is meant to be revealed to all after centuries of mystery. Now we enter the square. It feels like a circle with its inevitable and perpetual rotation, bringing nothing but dizziness and fatigue to the visitor. A circle is a symbol of continuous motion without end, offering no corner for rest or reflection. The square, in contrast, urges to keep running and moving forward, as if we might miss something important if we pause. Yet in the end, it takes from us what we've always held in our hands, life. With a deceptive smile in its final moments, seems to whisper, "You came empty-handed, and you leave empty-handed." But why the square? How did we come to know this name? The mystery begins at the first door of the museum. When visitors approach this door, thinking it to be the entrance, they notice 2 surprising things. First, to their great surprise, they realize that it is actually the exit and not the entrance. Naturally, this causes some doubt, but the guards direct them to the right, towards a long wall on the eastern side of the square, where the sun rises from its hidden place. Despite the clear exit signs placed above and around the museum's entrance, it's observed that even Turkish-speaking visitors struggle to understand why these signs are there. This confusion arises because it defies our usual expectation that the entrance to a complex would be in the most obvious and accessible part of the square. Yet here, the entrance is positioned far away, outside the square, hidden from our view. Why would the designers of this spiritual structure reverse the locations of the entrance and exit? Or, more fundamentally, why aren't the entrance and exit in the same place? Although the exit door is not very large, visitors can use it for both entry and exit. So why did the designers place the exit door in the middle of the square, while the entrance is several hundred meters away behind the square? This question holds a mysterious and clever answer. Another interesting point is that the exit gate is labeled Square Gate, rather than simply Exit Gate. This makes it clear that the area outside and in front of the museum has been deliberately named Square. Now, we need to explore the main foundations of the square. It appears that the primary function of the square is straight, except for its eastern side, which is entirely occupied by the museum. The square is surrounded by markets on the other 3 sides. A collection of shops, hotels and restaurants encircled the square from the south, the west and the north. This large market, along with the square, also closely embraces the grand and magnificent Sultan Selim Mosque. It seems as though the mosque and the market are 2 inseparable parts of the square. One might wonder if all these elements could have been arranged by mere coincidence. What other evidence suggests that, despite its apparent simplicity, this structure has complex and mysterious inner nature? To answer this clearly, we can pose several and more questions and leave the final interpretation to the observer. To determine whether the arrangement of the three foundational elements of the square is rooted in mystery or coincidence, the first question concerns the square gate, which serves as the exit of the museum. One should ask, why was it designed this way? The second question relates to the layout and positioning of the mosque and the bazaar. The forthcoming images and videos will focus on the bazaar area up to the museum's exit, namely the square gate, and the surroundings of the mosque without extending beyond those areas. The main entrance of the mosque opens to the north and leads directly to the central section of the bazaar. The mosque also has two other side doors, one on the west, which provides full access to the market, and another one on the east. The eastern door, however, is located in a narrow corridor facing the museum's wall. Since the museum occupies the entire eastern side, this door does not provide direct access to the market like the others. It is worth noting that this eastern door lies on the path leading away from the square and towards the museum's entrance gate. Along this long path, as we will see, there are no traces of the market. Perhaps this was intentional, reflecting the designer's view that no remnants of the bazaar should be present along this route. We will later examine this mysterious function of this door by exploring the organic connection between the mosque and the bazaar. To clarify this relationship, we will also examine the southern side of the square, which lies behind the mosque. This is an image of the wall behind the mosque. As you can see, there is no door for entry or exit on this side. In fact, it is impossible to enter or exit the mosque from this side, as it faces the street where the museum entrance is located. Additionally, it is clear that the entire wall runs parallel to the narrow path leading to the museum's entrance and extending along the bazaar. Upon examining the architectural structure, one can infer that the entrance gate was intentionally placed in a location that it is out of reach, far from hustle and far from bustle of both the bazaar and the mosque. One might still ask, why is this? What is the connection between the bazaar and the mosque that makes them so intertwined, requiring an equal distance from both when entering the spiritual dargah and the Mevlana Museum? Why must visitors turn their backs on both and walk along path to reach the entrance gate? Hafiz expresses this duality as follows. In the realm of true love or spiritual seeking, what is valued and sought after is the broken heart. And if you're seeking personal gain, know that it is not aligned with the true essence of love or a spiritual pursuit. The bazaar is a place for earning income and conducting trade. Here, all kinds of goods are available to meet a person's needs, places to sleep, food, clothing, and drinks. However, to enjoy the offerings of the bazaar, one must pay a price. In the bazaar, you receive goods in exchange for the money you pay. Without payment, you won't receive any goods or services. This raises an interesting question. What happens in the mosque? Is entering and exiting a mosque, like entering a church, a synagogue, or any other temple, just another form of transaction? In the mosque, individuals express servitude, reverence, and devotion, praying and performing rituals in the hope of receiving a response from their Lord. This response might be expected in this world, but more often it is hoped for in the hereafter. The close proximity of the mosque and the bazaar is remarkable and cannot be easily dismissed. From this perspective, the square can be seen as a place of trading, not just for worldly goods, but also for the soul and the afterlife. This brings us closer to answering the initial question. Why does the Mevlana Museum or its spiritual gateway have no entrance from the square? Why must one take a long route, turn away from the square, and journey farther to reach the entrance of the spiritual dargah? In one of his couplets, Mevlana contrasts reason and love using the metaphor of the marketplace. He says, although reason based on the world of logic pursues the material world and participates in calculated transactions, love looks beyond the material world and its markets, perceiving spiritual realms and deeper meanings. Let us now delve into the meaning behind the namings of the doors. The Mevlana Museum, which was known as the Tekke before Atatürk, had 8 doors. These included 6 gates with distinct names and meanings, along with the 2 main entrance and exit doors to the mausoleum. A simple corridor leads from the tomb area to the courtyard, which would be the nearest exit route. The 2 most prominent gates, the square gate and the entrance gate, are located on opposite sides of the complex, far apart from each other. Their significance needs no further explanation. However, 2 important doors, often overlooked by the visitors, yet crucial to unlocking the deeper secrets of the Dargah, are situated along the path from the square to the entrance. The gate of the Dervishes and the Hamuzan gate, both of which will be explained in detail later. Upon entering the vast and pleasant courtyard of the Dargah, for which no fee has ever been charged, visitors are free to pass through as many times as they wish throughout the day. The first entrance to the more compact tomb area, separated from the spacious courtyard by low walls, is called Kustahan Gate. The choice of the word Kustahan by the original designers of the Dargah carries a clear message for those unfamiliar with the etiquette of presence, entry, and life within the Dargah. Many enter this sacred place with their heads held high and curious minds, either for entertainment or because of recommendations from others. These visitors might come from any age or social class, but what they often share is a materialistic mindset, defiant against deeper meaning and spiritual realms, determined not to lose control over their individual will. Perhaps, for this reason, as visitors pass through the Kustahan Gate, the first and last thing they encounter before reaching the main tomb area is a small cemetery, where dignitaries of the Dargah from past centuries are buried. Confronting the graves of the dead at the very entrance may serve as a very strong reminder of the inevitable end of life. According to the designers, this encounter with death is meant to encourage those who have temporarily turned away from the bazaar and the square to reflect on the spiritual. Upon seeing the graves, they might find a compelling reason to shift their focus from the material world to the spiritual one. This entry might be thought-provoking and even unsettling for minds deeply entangled in worldly affairs, serving as a reminder of the consequences of living a life solely rooted in materialism. Why should this door be judged in such a way? The same question arises with the other doors. The answer lies in comparing the name and appearance of this gate with those beyond the beautiful fence of the tomb's courtyard, leading to what can be considered the second entry. This door, as it stands, bears several distinctive features. First, the name Chelebile Gate immediately catches the visitor's attention. Upon closer examination of the two doors, one notices two chains hanging beside the latches on each door. These chains unconsciously compel anyone passing through the gate to bow their head, both when entering and exiting. This subtle act of bowing by the admirers of the Dargah of Mevlana is seen as a gesture of heartfelt reverence. Here, in this remarkable architectural masterpiece, we see the name of Husam al-Din Chalabi, chosen as a symbol of honor. The name of the Chalabiyan Gate is derived from him and his descendants. Husami Nama is the poetic name that Mevlana gave to the Masnavi. By the blessing of the spiritual attraction of a scholar like you, the Husami Nama has become renowned across the world. Similarly, my purpose and intention in composing this Masnavi is you, O Husam al-Din. O Husam al-Din, I address you as radiance because, in essence, you are like the sun, and both radiance and Husam are the qualities of yours. This is the first distinction between the two doors, but another notable difference is worth mentioning. The distance from the Kuzastahan gate to the entrance of the mausoleum is nearly 4 times longer than the distance from the Chalabiyan gate. The path from the Kuzastahan gate to the tomb is significantly longer, while the distance from the Chalabiyan gate is only slightly greater from that from the Dervishan gate. After just a few steps from the Chalabiyan gate, one finds themselves in the main area of the tomb, near the entrance. Upon further reflection, examining the gates, based on their apparent and obvious differences, can guide any curious mind towards understanding the mystical nature of their arrangement and the meaning behind their different names. Now, we turn to the 2 other gates along the path from the square gate to the entrance gate. The first gate is the Dervishan gate, located within the square and close to the mosque. One of the unique characteristics of this gate, unlike the 4 previously mentioned gates, is that it remains closed. Another feature is the presence of 2 door knockers and a peephole, which might give visitors the impression that this gate is meant for the entrance and exit of dervishes. However, after entering the Dargah and observing the door from the inside, it becomes clear that the placement of this gate is entirely symbolic and serves no practical function, unlike the next gate, the Hamusan gate. If we imagine that this gate, which never opens, did not exist, would it cause any issues for visitors or from an architectural perspective? The answer is no, as few visitors pause at this gate along the path, except perhaps briefly and casually. In fact, the close nature of this gate might symbolically reflect the traditions of dervish practices. It seems as though entry through this gate is reserved exclusively for dervishes. The door knockers are intended for dervishes to announce their presence and request entry, while the peephole allows the gatekeeper to confirm that the person knocking is indeed a dervish before opening the gate. Along this path, after passing through the dervishan gate, which can be considered an entrance away from the bazaar and the square, we reach the crossroads of destiny, the street behind the complex. As mentioned earlier, the mosque does not have a door in this direction. There are only two doors from the entire complex on this street, the Hamusan Gate and the entrance gate to the Dargah of Mevlana. To the right are the mosque and the market. To the left is the Dargah. After turning away from the mosque and masjid, we arrive at the Hamusan Gate. The difference between the Hamusan Gate and the Dervishan Gate is simplicity. The Hamusan Gate has no door knockers or peephole. It seems that physical characteristics are irrelevant for entry through this gate, making knocking pointless. Behind this gate, one must sit and wait, hoping that one day it might open for the silent seeker. This is the Hamusan Gate, and what is required here is silence. This gate has 4 locking arms on the inside, suggesting it is opened very rarely. The proximity of the Dervishan Gate and the Hamusan Gate suggests a spiritual and organic connection between them. Both gates remain closed, indicating they are meant for special individuals. Based on mystical literature, the Hamusan Gate is considered the final passage for these selected seekers. Sometimes a true and righteous dervish, whose refuge is his quiet and joyful heart, withdraws from the world and all its distractions to dwell behind this gate. There he waits for the gate to open and for his soul to merge with the infinite light of truth. According to what has been mentioned, the visitors to Mevlana's museum are a large crowd, but in the end, they divide into 2 groups. Initially, everyone passes through the Kustahan Gate. They glance at the cemetery and walk along a rather long path until they reach the main area of the tomb. Surrounding the tomb's courtyard are chambers that once served as living spaces or places of solitude for the dervishes, but are now part of the museum, displaying artifacts, tools of the dervishes and ancient writings. In the center of the courtyard, there is a fountain that was once used by the dervishes for ablution. Visitors then enter the tomb, which houses the burial sites of Mevlana, his father, mother, and relatives, before exiting into the courtyard through a passage near the entrance. After exiting, visitors are divided into 4 categories, based on the arrangement and labeling of the gates. The majority who exit through the symbolic gate of Kustahan take a longer path than the others, which could be seen as a symbolic punishment for their arrogance. They return to the bazaar of their lives through the gate of the square, perhaps never to visit such a place again. The second large group exits through an unnamed hallway on the left side of the courtyard, the closest area to the exit. This group has no specific characteristics. They belong neither to the arrogant group nor to the category of the Chalabian or the dervishes. In other words, they are a large minority who live through this short and narrow passage, feeling uncertain and still searching for answers, but with the possibility of returning. The third group, symbolically considered the Chalabian, is a smaller minority than the second group. They are the Buddhists, individuals of chivalry and virtue, who live within the arena of the square. They maintain an unbreakable bond with the bazaar, yet willingly offer a portion of their profits at the dargah. In truth, while their minds are present in the bazaar, their hearts belong to the dargah. This group is more inclined toward the dargah than the mosque, and they are enthusiastic listeners of spiritual stories and teachings. Occasionally, one of them might transcend the limits of reason and turn away from the bazaar. They might join the dervishes or those devoted to the path of love, fully turning their hearts towards the dargah and pursuing the stages of their spiritual journey alongside the dervishes, much like Hussam al-Din Chalabi. In the sixth book of the Masnavi, Mevlana described his human condition as follows: I am like a bird soaring in the heights. How could the thoughts of a fly ever reach me? Through this verse, Mevlana clearly defines the ultimate state of enlightenment as the distancing of the I, the self or myself from the thought. He also presents a solution to humanity's eternal problem, living in ever-changing, unstable thoughts, as the separation of the I, or silent eternal awareness from the mortal body and fleeting thoughts. This eternal I, now separated from body and thought, has been recognized and named at various levels of consciousness as the silent witness, the singular seed of existence, the truth, the eternal, and the creator. Another fundamental aspect of Mevlana's dargah, aside from its architectural structure, is the remarkable music, which is entirely based on this verse of Mevlana's and is played throughout the dargah whenever its doors are open to devotees. Like the doors, the music often goes unnoticed by visitors. The soundtrack of this experience is the same sound as the ney, the reed flute of the dargah. Upon closer inspection, this music consists of two distinct parts. The longer first section forms a pattern with repeated, somewhat irregular rises and falls, symbolizing the structure of thought. After the first section ends, there is a brief moment of complete silence or pause, followed by a second part which begins with two parallel layers that do not create any auditory interference. The first layer is completely steady, without variation, as if a single note is being played continuously. It begins a few seconds before the second layer, which repeats the same music as in the first section. These two melodies continue in parallel, and eventually, after the second layer ends, the first layer persists for a few more seconds. This dual composition can be connected to Mevlana's verses, where their higher layer represents the silent, constant awareness of eternity, and while the second layer symbolizes human thought, which has a beginning and an end. Thought always emerges in the middle of timeless consciousness and ends at a specific point within that same eternity. The journey to the world of meaning in Iranian mysticism can be summarized as follows: moving from the noise of thought to conscious silence, experiencing the coexistence of both alive and ultimately departing from thought and body to reach conscious union with that silent eternity. The true dervish initially resembles a lost wanderer, alone in the square of life. Unlike the previous three groups, the true dervish is always solitary, even when surrounded by others. The complex of the square, comprised of the bazaar and the mosque, holds only temporary appeal. The true dervish cannot remain attached to the customs of the bazaar's inhabitants, for the essence seeks something beyond it. The true dervish searches for something that cannot be defined fully, but that exists. Therefore, the true dervish cannot be considered just another visitor. He is a curious seeker, calm yet restless, who wanders alone in the arena. Perhaps the magnificent and imposing mosque in the center of the square captivates the true dervish's gaze and stirs the curiosity. Like others, the true dervish might see the exit of the dargah as an entrance. Which must be inevitably traversed along the long path from the square to the entrance. Passing through the Kustahan gate, perhaps the true dervish pauses to reflect on the small, silent cemetery filled with the unheard murmurs of the deceased, nothingness within nothingness, with the intention of understanding the beginning of this path, how to continue, and what it should be done. The true dervish walks gracefully toward the main courtyard. Upon entering the tomb, the true dervish begins to observe. Perhaps the spirit of Mevlana arouses a strong feeling, coming alive with the essence and atmosphere of the tomb. It feels as though the true dervish remembers something. But what is it? Is it known? Perhaps at the end of this long path, outside the arena and the tomb, a faint and a distant light within, a visible sound, unheard, calling out. Exiting the tomb, the true dervish unexpectedly chooses a path that goes against the direction of the others. Calm and determined, enters the 17th chamber, where the spiritual guide Aski Dede enlightens the seeker about the ranks of the path. Here, the dervish learns to adorn the body with the attire of dervishes, solely to meet basic needs, without desire or request. Then returns to solitude, illuminating the eternal lamp of the heart's chamber with the flickering candle of the body. In the refugee of this light, the true dervish finds a different kind of peace and tranquility. A long or short time will pass, but what does it matter? For someone who has clearly seen the image of the beloved reflected in the mirror of their consciousness, it no longer makes a difference. The true dervish knows that if not in life, then in death, the union with the beloved is certain. Thus, the true dervish shortens the long passage of time by remembering. Then, one day, the true dervish exits through the Dervishan gate forever, for the last time. Without hesitation, without looking back at the square of the mosque, slowly walks towards the door of the Hamusan. Now, knowing where and why has come and where is going, for his true homeland has been revealed to the true dervish. The dervish has a new intoxication, and in head and eyes a different awareness. Listen to the essence of this dance, for they have a different kind of listening. We are like the soul, silent yet expressive, bewildered in a different kind of silence. The true dervish stands behind the door of Hamusan, quiet and aware, with a soundless call of come within. The true dervish waves the hand, stamps the foot, and spins around. Then, in that same blissful silence, sits on the ground behind the door, as if becoming as humble and insignificant as dust, embodying complete humility. O earth, what are you thinking about? And why are you in silence and contemplation? And the earth answers, inside me, I have a green garden and a never-ending spring. Be quiet, for silence is sweeter than drinking honey. In times of pain, sometimes it's better to just point instead of speaking clearly. One day, the door will open for the true dervish, and just like Mevlana, will leave the body behind on this side and allow the soul to ascend. The true dervish will raise above death with silence, joyfully, ready to escape the trap of the body and unite with the beloved. But what if all of this is nothing more than an illusion? It must be asked, what reality is true? Is it not possible to question it in this way? Can the square, the bazaar and its mosque be considered more real than the Dargah? By what measure and by what scale? Perhaps it should be placed on the scales of reason. Now, reason asks, what is the true achievement of each of them? The dervish smiles and says, joy that cannot be diminished. What does the square offer except eternal suffering? In fact, this comparison can be heard from the lips of Mevlana himself. News come from these ephemeral worlds. Will you live with sorrow or with happiness? Mevlana responds about himself, what greater joy can there be than your love, which brings life to the world? What sorrow do lovers feel, knowing that this world is not everlasting?